turnout today. And we're going to go ahead and Brendan, do you want to do roll call, and then we can make sure that everybody's here. We're going to go down the committee list, and then if we miss you, we'll have a chance at the end to let us know you're here. All right. Thanks everyone for coming.
All right, sounds great. So I'll read off everyone I see from the membership, and if you are a member or an alternate and you did not hear your name, please let me know when I get through this. So we'll start here with, I see District 1, Dennis, thanks for being here. District 3, Pavo, I see you signed on, so welcome.
Yes.
All right, and Tim Walters, Development at Large. For Environmental at Large, I've got Christine, Eric, and David. David, is Linda there? Oh, you're muted. David, you're muted. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I couldn't get it to turn. Yes, here she is. Here I am.
All right, perfect. Thank you. I've got Jamie from Atascadero Mutual Water Company, Steve and Brent from the Farm Bureau, Steve Sinton, Shandon San Juan Water District, and Hillary Graves from Estrella El Pomar Creston Water District. I've got Charles Bourbeau, City of Atascadero, Andy Pease, City of Slow, Ray Dienzo, Cambria CSD, Ron Munns for Los Osos CSD, Ed Eby for Napomo CSD, and Shirley Gibson for Oceano CSD. So were there any other members who are present who did not hear their name? And we will touch on the new members here in a moment. So we'll touch on that in an agenda item coming up. But for the callers, anyone on the phone, a member or a member alternate who did not hear their name?
Yeah, this is Anthony Lindstrom, Golden State Water.
All right, thank you. It gives me 18, Andy. Is that what you have?
Did we lose? Oh, there's Andy. Okay, I thought we lost you.
Sorry, I wasn't lining up with your count. I don't know. I probably just missed one, but since Steve and Brent are both from Farm Bureau, that counted it as one.
Yeah, as one. Yeah.
Okay, I must have missed a couple on your list. So, all right. Is there anybody else? So we have quorum. Thanks, everyone. Is there anybody else who's would like to introduce themselves who's a non-voting member today, who hasn't been called yet?
I haven't been called. Robert, Grover Beach, new city council member.
Robert, thanks.
Taking Desiree's place.
And so, Brendan, does that do?
Yeah, I could touch on that right now.
Yeah, let's take care of it now.
Sure, not a problem. Yeah.
Can I introduce myself first?
Oh, of course.
This is Deborah Logan. I'm with the TCSD Board of Directors, and I'm replacing Jeff English.
It was a little unclear about what they meant by upgrades.
Thank you, Deborah. Welcome.
Thank you.
This is Greg Graywell. I'm listening in today.
Thanks, Greg.
Hey, Greg.
Hi.
Miss you.
This is George Kendall. I'm listening in today.
Thanks, George. Glad you're here. All right. Anyone else?
I'm Laurel. Josh Alvidrez with Golden State Water. I'm listening in.
Josh, and then Laurel.
I'm Laurel Barton, a new council member in Morro Bay, taking Marlis's place on this committee.
Excellent. Welcome.
Welcome,
Thank
Laurel.
you. Thanks.
I'm Madeline Travis. I'm supporting the Stormwater Subcommittee, and I'm also going to be listening in today.
Thanks, Madeline.
My name is Nick Teague. I'm the new Water Resources Program Manager with the City of San Luis Obispo.
Awesome. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Okay.
And I'm Mark Batney with the UC Cooperative Extension, listening in.
Thanks,
Hey,
Mark.
Mark. Thanks for having me here.
I'm Kylie Hensley. Oh, go ahead.
This is Patricia Wilmore with the Paso Robles Wine Country Alliance.
Hey, Patricia.
All right.
This is Kylie Hensley with County Planning, listening in today.
Also, Toby Moore with Golden State Waters, listening in.
Awesome.
Bill Clemens with Oceano CSD, listening in.
Thanks, Will.
Great.
Yeah, so about membership, so the way the process works, I know we have many new members who've been appointed by their agencies, and whether it's city council or board of directors, and those appointments do need to be confirmed by the board of supervisors. So I have received, whether it's from your city clerk or from someone else, I've received all those notifications for our new members. So Laurel, Deborah, everyone who's introduced themselves today as the new member, this is going to the Board of Supervisors for confirmation on March 2nd. So everything will be in place by our March 3rd regular meeting. So unfortunately for today, we won't record, we can't record a vote for you. But again, welcome and thank you. And we should have it all straightened out by the next meeting. I think this is pretty standard for the first meeting after an election, after everything's confirmed and appointments have been made, the notices come in. I got one today. So they're still coming in. I'm getting them into the board item. So I did want to note, if there are any changes, I think I saw Golden State Water. I'll put you on the spot. I think I saw an email. You guys might be making a change. So as soon as that's kind of official by your governing body, please email me and let me know, or if any other WRAC members, are making a change, please just let me know as soon as possible, because it does take some time to just get that through the process, get it in front of the board for that confirmation. And that was the main thing I wanted to do for member updates, Andy. So.
Great, thanks. And we'll circle back to do the minutes in a moment, but anybody else have any things that they want to note on member updates? It would appear that we still have vacancies for some of our districts. Let's see, no, we've got Bravo now. I don't think we have a District 5 nominee, do we?
Yeah, district actually 4 and 5 are, I believe, in process of naming somebody new.
Okay.
So I've been in contact with them about that.
Okay, great. And then do we do some kind of an orientation for new folks?
That's a great question. I don't think so. I've just kind of given an email heads up. This is how it works, and you're on the email list.
Nice try, Andy. No, I don't think we've ever done any kind of orientation, but I like the spirit there.
Like, here you go. If anybody would like some kind of an orientation, Brendan and I would be happy to set up a meeting. Just send us an email and we will go over bylaws or something. We'll figure out a good agenda to get you up to speed. So just let us know if anybody is interested.
I think it is important that all new members be sent a copy of the bylaws. Other than that, I invite people to just jump in and the water is fine.
Trial by fire.
That's how we all did it, right? And then, you know, within the year I was chair. So watch out what can happen here. So
that's a great idea, Christine. I will send out the bylaws.
Great, thank you. And maybe a couple of recent minutes or something like that. Okay. Gosh, I'm just really super sloppy today. I never did officially introduce when I did the call. I see that you're recording, and I never said that this is officially calling to order WRAC for today, Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021. So everything's out of order. I apologize for that. Okay, let's go ahead to the meeting minutes. Our last meeting was December 2nd of 2020. Any changes or comments on the minutes? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Go ahead, Hillary. Hillary, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Excellent. So we have a motion by Hillary and second by Christine. And just because there are so many of us on the call, we do this kind of by consensus. So we're assuming you're saying yes. And then if anybody is a no, please unmute and let us know now. Okay. And then of the voting members, is there anybody who wants to, it doesn't particularly matter, but does anybody want to record abstaining from this vote?
Andy, I'd like to abstain. This is Tim Walters.
Tim Walters abstains. Thank you.
Tim.
Anyone else? Okay, great. Let's move on. We've already covered membership updates, so now we're going to go through the ongoing updates. Item 4. I'm going to name each item if you'd like, and pause if you'd like to speak out on something. Please do so then. Rain and reservoir report.
I'd like to add something to that.
Absolutely. Isn't that great?
Brendan, do you want to add some even more current information?
Well, I just wanted to make a note. I mean, obviously the rain and reservoir report was published before the rain we had last weekend, you know, so that's, you know, infinitely clear. I also wanted to note we, you know, as part of a project we're doing with Public Works related to the improvements in Cambria with the pump, our consultant emailed us to let us know that the storm in Cambria on a both 24-hour and a 48-hour basis was a 200-year event based on quantity of rain. So while the intensities, we didn't check the intensity of the rain, the inches per hour, but for total inches in a 24-hour and a 48-hour period, it was considered a 200-year event. Pretty epic. So I thought I'd add that in.
Great, thank you.
What's the status of Santa Margarita Reservoir, and do we have a live stream?
I did not see a notice about a live stream. I forget what's officially called, but I didn't see the press
there's
release
a live
for that.
stream.
Okay. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah,
Mark,
this is Mark Chamani,
Mark,
I saw a
Facilities
report,
Division Manager.
Christine here. I saw a report that Santa Margarita only got a little over 4 inches compared with the 8 inches in my backyard. So I don't think there was a huge amount in Pozo. There was not a huge amount of runoff up there. So I think I saw that the Santa Margarita did not come up much from this rain.
Mark, was that you who was starting to comment with some authority? Couldn't tell.
Yeah, we had staff go out, and we do have live stream based on the parameters we have for our points from the storm last week. But obviously that could change, obviously, with things dissipating after the rain event. So we'll get back to you on that as far as, you know, the press release.
Thank you.
Thank you. Encouraging to hear.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. Okay, anything else on let's see, Random Reservoir or California Drought Monitor Summary. All right, groundwater basin management efforts. I did want to touch on that, that I was able to, there was a Public Policy Institute of California, they did an article that some of you might have seen in Cal Matters, Building Resilience for Cities and Farms with Water Partnerships. They did some research, and I was able to listen in on a webinar that they did the other day, and it was super interesting to be more intentional with the urban settings and the farm settings and the water. And it came out of LA that they've done their projections, and they would kind of need their full allocations. Their initial projections was they would need that allocation 7 out of 10 years, but then they did a bunch of conservation and gray water recycling, and then they only need it 3 out of 10 years. And so the recognition that there's got to be a better way to then have better utilization. You don't want to kind of give up your allocation for those drought years, but could there be a more intentional way to partner with, in this case, the Central Valley, so that on the higher rain years that the farmers get that water to basin and have that kind of growth, and then on drought years that it goes back to the urban, and even potentially if there's enough water, you know, that builds up, that there could even be groundwater sent into the system to go down to LA. So they had a couple different mechanisms and recommendations for both local and state policies and programs to facilitate that type of work. But I thought that was exciting and interesting, and they mentioned the potential on the Central Coast in particular as well. So that's pretty neat. Yes, David. David?
Yeah, I've got something on Los Osos. There are 2 entries on the Los Osos Basin. One is the increased chloride that's being reported, and that seems quite serious to me, and I think we should know more about what's happening with the lower aquifer and seawater intrusion. And the other one is somewhat linked. Farther down in that section, it talks about water offsets, and it now states that the dishwasher, or what it is, and washing machine retirement program is allowing offsets out of the impact area. And I am curious to know if that means out of the groundwater basin. And then I ask, what the hell good does that do? So I need some sort of understanding of what was meant by offsets that are not in the impact area.
This is Kylie Hensley, County Planning Staff. I can speak to the question.
Kylie, could you speak up?
Sure. Water offsets can come from anywhere within the Los Osos groundwater basin. I believe the specific area is the sewer service area. So it can come from within the sewer service area and outside of the sewer service area, but just from within the groundwater basin. If that answers your question.
That answer that, David? We're good? Thank you. All right, were there other comments?
May I say something? This is Greg Graywell.
Sure, Greg.
I don't know if people have been watching what's going on at the Delta, but in the last 5 days, 252,000 acre feet of water has been let out into the ocean to become salt water that could have been used to recharge our basins and farm areas. But since '96, with 7 different water bond initiatives, no new infrastructure has been built to store water. So the state of California, even though it's an arid and Mediterranean place, does get the rainfall that it would need if there was enough storage facility to store the water, and we wouldn't be talking about some of these other issues if they would have done that. Thank you.
Yeah. Got to do better. Anyone else have a comment there? All right, integrated regional water management. One.
I have a question there. When is the money coming?
It's a great question.
Is Wadden on, or are you doing
No,
this?
I got that. That's yeah. No, that's all
All
in my court. So Ed, I know I've been in I've been in communication with Mario, you know, the general manager there at NTSD, about the timeline. So we're still working on the agreements with DWR, and then the once we have that agreement in place, we'll follow that with an agreement with you or your district, and then at that point you could submit an invoice. So it will be some time until that's all, you know, kind of in place there.
Will it be before the pandemic's over?
Well, I don't know what you mean
that's
by
kind of a
the end.
double question.
The end of the what is the end of the pandemic? But I mean,
Two moving targets there.
A couple of months. I mean, we're probably looking at fall. Just the knowing how these things, you know, agreements and going to the board of supervisors again and to create budget accounts. We're looking at the fall.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else anybody else wanting money from Brendan? Stormwater resource plan, questions or comments?
I would just like to highlight on this one, we did have an update for this section. Even though the stormwater resources plan, you know, is complete, it's still, if any agency or group, you know, 503c3 type, you know, organization is looking to seek state funding on a stormwater project, it does need to be a part of a stormwater resources plan. So we've noted a new Prop 68 related solicitation that's DWR is circulating for review, and we noticed that you need to have your project in a stormwater resources plan. So just want to keep that in front of the group. If any of you are seeking funds for a stormwater related project, please contact Sarah. Sarah Crable, her contact is in here. She's on the call, and she'll get your project into the stormwater resources plan so you can be eligible for this funding.
Great, thank you. Let's see, various county water programs, policies, ordinances, a little bit of a catch-all here. I feel like I had one here.
Planning. I'd like to provide a verbal update for the Paso Robles groundwater basin. On January 26th, the Board of Supervisors provided direction to staff to develop a land use ordinance to require permitting for new and expanded irrigated crop planting through the year 2045 with a three-tiered approach. Tier 1 being an exemption up to 25 acre-feet per year per site, which is an increase from the current 5 acre-feet per year. Tier 2 would be projects that are maintaining neutral water use. And then Tier 3 would be projects that are increasing water use on site beyond that 24 acre-feet per year, which would trigger CEQA review. So it's a pretty significant board direction. And we're working on a pretty aggressive timeline as directed by the board, and we requested to be on the agenda for next month's meeting to provide a chance for input on the scoping of the EIR. Thank you.
Thanks, Kylie. No further, okay. And then our last item in the ongoing updates is just open reporting on water conservation opportunities and information. Anybody has any? Okay. All right. Let's go on then to receive an update from Stormwater Capture Subcommittee.
I think that's going to be Ron.
It is.
Yeah, Ron.
I was waiting for the cue.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Ron. I think I tagged you on that one too. So great. Thanks, Ron.
I'd like to start off thanking Madeline and Mladen for kind of organizing all the materials for the meeting, the agenda, setting up a communication link for us. It really helped our first meeting, which was held on January 27th. I have to say the meeting was only an hour, and I think the group would agree we could have gone on for hours, especially given the experience and knowledge of all the people on this committee. So with that, we kind of went through and discussed objectives for stormwater capture, kind of really filtering those down to a few that are generally water supply augmentation for agriculture and urban uses, and environmental objectives such as watershed management, especially in the upper watersheds, achieving water quality objectives and benefits, and assisting in the sequestration of carbon. Sequestration of carbon, I could say that. So there's quite a bit of discussion around those. From there, we went in and had a great presentation by George Kendall on his Santa Rosa Creek groundwater recharge project. This is the second time I had the opportunity to hear George's presentation. Very great project, which led to a discussion of other opportunities for small scale projects such as this on ag lands. Which led to another discussion based on the barriers of these types of projects, those being permitting requirements, cost, landowner acceptance, and we talked about how that those barriers could be overcome. Some of it might be with incentives and partnerships with urban areas to help fund those types of projects. We talked a little bit about water rights and how that would be resolved. So anyway, long story short, over that course of an hour, we covered quite a bit of ground. I'm really excited for where that group is headed with the stormwater capture programs. Our next meeting is February 25th, and we'll have an hour and a half to go over more information. So with that, I can answer any questions. And many of the members are on this in this meeting right now too.
Great, thank you, Ron. Anybody who was there want to add on to that? Or any questions? Yeah, no, I agree. I thought it's super interesting. I'm really looking forward to kind of the progression of this ad hoc committee. And I also appreciate the that this really stemmed from WRAC's Water Conservation Ad Hoc Committee, where we came up with several ideas to present to the Board of Supervisors on things that we could work on. And this definitely was a subject that rose to the top, and staff was thankfully able to kind of take it from there and secure our Civic Sparks Fellow, which is just kind of makes all this possible. So thanks for that work, and to the great advocacy and knowledge of George Kendall and others. Anything else on this item? Okay, we'll continue to give updates. Okay, so now the next item is to consider recommending approval of the water management tools contract amendment to the state water project contract. I think Hillary was going to start us off on this.
Yes, hi everyone. First, I just want to say big thanks to Courtney and Brendan for pretty much they made the agenda, invited all of our members, set it all up. I really appreciate the time and attention that you spent on this, so thank you. We met on January 7th with Public Works staff and the consultant team to review the scope of the water management tools study, and just to get an idea about the preliminary results of a needs assessment and also the draft state water related goals for the district. Our ad hoc committee does recommend approval of the water management tools contract amendment to the state water project contracts, and we thought as a group that it would be beneficial for the whole WRAC to get an idea about or see the same information that we saw in our meeting. So Courtney is going to do that. I just quickly wanted to share before we move into that some of the discussion points that we thought were important, and they are outlined in our letter, which is attached to the agenda. But the basics of it are that we felt that the value of this water resource is very high for San Luis Obispo County. And we think that the potential of using it for recharge and stabilization of high priority groundwater basins is only one important consideration. There's a lot of other things that are really important to think about. For example, it provides greater flexibility and tools for our county to deal with future water shortages, which could result from long-term drought conditions. Also, it helps us to ensure a more stable and reliable water supply to support the entire county, not just the current state water contractors. The state water contractors, by having a more stable water supply, they can be less reliant on local supplies, and then those local supplies could then be utilized by other water users. And it's important also to note that it would enhance our supply and water quality. We all recognize that we need flexibility and management tools, and this is one way to ensure flexibility. And then last but not least, we have the potential to reduce costs or even generate revenues through transfers and exchanges. So those are some of the discussion points. And then Courtney, I'm gonna hand it over to you, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, thanks, Hillary. Hope everyone can hear me okay. Okay, I thought I would run through the water management tools study, hopefully refresh everyone's memory, or with our new folks, provide some level of background. I do like that orientation idea. And then talk about the actual amendment to allow for the water management tools to be used and upcoming next steps. So I'm just going to give an overview of the draft needs assessment that was a part of your package and your WRAC agenda package. Again, it's a working document, so please provide any feedback that you have. Also wanted to go over the draft SLO County objectives, looking at the different perspectives of stakeholders in our county and what that means for the water management tool study. Looking at a potential pilot program in 2021, and then I'll go through the specific recommendations that we're going to be bringing to our board in 2 different steps. Next slide, please. Okay, launching in. The overall goal is to develop water management strategies to optimize the use of state water project water that's available and when it's available to San Luis Obispo County, but we're doing it jointly with Santa Barbara County because of our shared infrastructure, the coastal branch that runs off the aqueduct in the valley and into our county and Santa Barbara County. It's going to be an iterative process, so we're having various stakeholder meetings, and anytime new information comes in, it gets kind of integrated as we go along. Next slide, please. And this is kind of the oversight. So myself and Ray Stokes at CCWA, Central Coast Water Authority, meet monthly with the consultant team to review deliverables and timing and next steps. We have scheduled 4 stakeholder meetings. We've had 2 of the 4, and that goes, it's a public meeting. It's a joint public meeting of the CCWA Operating Committee and our State Water Subcontractors meeting group, advisory committee, and then also inviting the WRAC Ad Hoc Subcommittee in addition to just public announcement of those meetings. And then we give periodic updates to the board of supervisors, and Ray gives an update to his CCWA board of directors. So that's sort of a coordination approach and public engagement. Overview of the study itself, the scope. First is understanding what the needs are. The consultant done various things. I sent them inundate him with a bunch of reports, basically all of our local water planning reports that had a lot of the information about current and future supply and demand needs. They met with the WRAC subcommittee, they met with the subcontractors, so just to get an understanding of the needs here and make sure they are keeping that in mind as they are looking at the different strategies that could be employed. They're looking at how much water is available through the State Water Project year to year. So every year, the state does an analysis of how much water can be delivered of the total allocations based on hydrology and regulatory considerations. And so they're looking at using the past delivery patterns and then the future projected patterns to understand how much water is available when. They're looking at the local infrastructure to see how much water can be conveyed through the treatment plant and local pipelines. And then they're going to develop selection criteria to try to weigh the different water management options. Next slide, please. Then they're going to explain what those different management components are, kind of going back to what Chair Pease was talking about with the workshop she just went to. There's opportunities to store it so that when you need it in dry years, then you can get it out of storage, looking at ways to transfer it or exchange it. Again, going back to those collaborative approaches, storing water when it's available, for when you need it, when it's not as available. So then the consultant's going to integrate that with the local needs assessment and present kind of a menu of options based on all that information for water management strategies and review that with through those stakeholder meetings. Next slide, please. So the schedule in detail is posted on our website, but just so you know, we expect this process to take us through the fall of 2021. And again, just kind of an iterative process as we get more and more folks engaged and providing us comments. We'll try to integrate those, that input along the way. Next slide, please. So going into the draft needs assessment, it's basically a high level assessment, just kind of verifying that, yes, we need water when it's, we're in drought years. We know we have water when it's wet. What are the different ways that we can optimize the use of our existing infrastructure or any water storage programs out there? But also understanding locally, are there also needs associated with water quality? For example, the city of Santa Maria, it's important for them to have state water to blend with the lower quality water supplies. So they also included that in their needs survey so that they could capture that as well. And then everyone kind of wants more water for less. So cost control is a big part of it too in trying to manage what are the best, most cost-effective strategies. And then they just wanted to capture any other needs they didn't think of in terms of these general categories. So you'll see those described in the draft study. And so again, they did a survey to our subcontractors. I provided them with our county-wide planning documents to capture all the other potential slow water users, which you can see kind of at the bottom there, basically all check boxes depending on which slow county need. It's kind of when you look at the whole county. So they just got an understanding of where the priorities lie in terms of needs. So again, that cost control and affordability, having an opportunity to store water for dry years, and then just again, that diversity of needs countywide. Next slide. And the Santa Barbara County had a very similar overview. And again, they had the water quality issue as well as the other ones that we had in SLO County. So that's sort of the consultants' efforts. And then on our side, once they present the management strategies, we needed to understand what the various perspectives in our county was related to state water. And, you know, it basically comes down to three: keeping a diverse long-term water portfolio for a county, maintaining the state water supply for those that depend on it, our subcontractors, and then looking at ways to reduce our district-wide taxpayer obligation, particularly as it relates to the unallocated state water supplies. Next slide, please. So when the consultant provides this menu of options to meet the various needs with the water management tools, the district would need to look at those options and compare that to our local objectives and figure out which combination of those strategies best meets those three perspectives needs. And so I'm going to walk through some of those considerations in the next couple of slides. And I wanted to point out that more detail on these three perspectives or objectives are on your PDF page 53, if you can find it in your packet and wanted to look at that in more detail. I'm definitely looking for your review and input on that so we can add to the different considerations for those three perspectives. Recognizing that, state water itself, we have it, and so how can we make the best use of it versus, getting rid of it altogether is where I'm focusing with this study. Next slide, please. So some of the details you'll see in that that chart is for the subcontractors. They'll need to understand what their reliability needs are now and into the future, and think about what strategies they might want to pursue, whether it's securing additional drought buffer from the district from that unallocated amount, looking at available storage programs that the consultant might present, or just relying on, buying water should they need it at a market rate at the time of need. So there's different levels of risk and financial considerations associated with that. Another consideration is, partnering with others. Are the subcontractors open to local wheeling to non-subcontractors? Recognizing that ideally the subcontractors who've invested in the pipelines locally would want to recover their costs, but it has to be kind of a negotiated price to attract buyers if they do want to be able to, make use of water here locally to meet more than just the subcontractors' needs. So there's some negotiation involved there. And we also, since we share it with Central Coast Water Authority, need to make sure there's no harm to them, but there may be opportunities to look across the whole coastal branch to meet needs between our two counties. And then once we get through this study and the subcontractors look at these different options and what their needs are and what the preferred management strategies would be, they would need to look at whether or not those water management tools do enough for their reliability needs in comparison to what the Delta Conveyance project is going to provide. So there's kind of a nexus in understanding these water management tools to the ultimate decision on the Delta project. So I just wanted to note that. So that's, the board went ahead and kept the door open so that a future decision would need to be made on whether or not to participate. And then from the district-wide taxpayer perspective, first step is understanding the degree of interest in fully relieving the tax roll of the unsubscribed amounts. Would we want to continue investing in the state water project to reserve for emergencies and future needs? Or, should the tax roll be relieved of that, recognizing we can't just put that money collected to other projects. That mechanism would end, and we'd have to find a different mechanism via Prop 218 or other mechanisms to invest in other projects such as desal. So, but there's still that perception, that interest in, all the countywide approach to funding any given project, even though the mechanisms would be different. And then another thing to consider is, if we do relieve the tax roll, does the district still want oversight of how state water is used and managed in our county? Or are you open to another governance model? Central Coast Water Authority, as a joint powers authority, has certain responsibilities for state water have been transferred to that. So that's another thing to consider when looking at the district-wide taxpayer kind of perspective. And then another one to look at is the allowable length of any transfers. Right now, the policy is not to do a permanent transfer or more than 5 years. The board in 2003 had wanted to finish our analysis of what our local needs are first through the master water report. And so that's been completed, and now it's kind of a good time to relook at that. And then looking at annual transfers, you know, might be a little less certain, you know, because we don't know if someone's going to want to buy or not in a given year. But if you do a longer term transfer, then, you know, you kind of have that in place. So that's another consideration for looking at the allowable length of transfers and whether or not you want to try to negotiate getting it back at an emergency. And then if there's no interest long-term here in our county or even in Santa Barbara County, need to understand the interest in, you know, if it's really important to get it off the tax roll, whether at that point we would want to look at a long-term permanent transfer. So those are kind of the bigger items from that perspective that I just wanted to pull out and hope to add to. And then the other perspective is the other needs throughout our county, whether it's those, you know, dependent on groundwater that are in decline and or other water purveyors that are looking for more resiliency and see state water as an option. And I know that there's interest out there. It would need to be, you know, negotiated. We have to make sure we address some of the unintended consequences or water rights concerns. And so the contracts would have to have, you know, amenable terms to address all those issues. And, you know, again, ideally the buyer, you know, doesn't want to have to pay more for water, and the seller wants to recover costs. So there has to be some sort of give and take there from the ideal. And then also we were thinking about, you know, if the board were to approve the water management amendment on February 9th, then we could look at a pilot program for 2021, just an annual transfer, since we have 14,000 acre feet of water right now in storage at San Luis Reservoir. Could become subject to spill if we get more rainstorms, or it's just an opportunity for cost recovery in balance with what we would want to maintain in storage for the current water year conditions. The subcontractors supported this. We thought it could inform policy decisions related to what does an annual transfer program look like, what kind of price is out there for it on an annual basis, and what does it take to make that kind of a thing happen. So that was the idea behind a pilot program, so we can get some of those details and kind of see how it works. I do know there's someone, I've already gotten a call looking to buy, so I know there's interest out there. But the recommendation would be to the board would be to have us come back with specific details on what it would take and how much to transfer versus store, and all the contractual arrangements and details. So just getting that direction to even look at it is what we would be looking at getting approval from the board on. So for today, as Hillary mentioned, it would be looking for support for executing the water management amendment. Again, you don't have to use them, but it would give an indicator that we're open to it and would want to look into it. DWR anticipates implementing the amendment in March, so we would want to be at the table to see what options are out there. I do want to note that a lawsuit was filed against DWR, not the individual contractors who've signed. And we have 23 of the other 29 have signed the water management amendment so far. So just wanted to make sure you're interested in that. So that would be on February 9th. And then I mentioned the pilot program. We're going to the board March 2nd to do a similar presentation to what I've given you today, and also to talk about the pilot program so that we can share with the board what we're hearing from you and other stakeholders, and then get their input as well. So that can help guide the study going forward. And in addition to those two board meetings, our next State Water Subcontractors Advisory Committee meeting is the 5th of March at 10. And the next public meeting for the study is April 8th. That's it.
Thank you, Courtney, and thank you, Hillary, for and the ad hoc team for working on this and spending time. It's certainly a lot of new material and big important discussion. Do we have sorry, was that Christine or Hillary? Hillary?
It's Hillary. Yeah, I just, one of the things I forgot to do when I was sharing our notes, I wanted to give the opportunity to the other ad hoc committee members if they had any comments to make, and I forgot to do that. So if it's okay with you, can we let them have an opportunity if they want to make any comments?
Sure. Any other folks? I saw David and Christine for comments after that, but anybody else who's on the ad hoc want to make any comments? And unless there's anything else we need to share, Brendan, maybe we can stop the screen share so we can see each other better. You can always pull up slides again if we need to. Okay, I don't see anybody else.
I will have a question after the others.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Thank you. Okay, so Christine, then David, then Eric. What I have right now.
Thank you. Yes, Courtney, I have a question regarding the basis of the two lawsuits. What are the issues in those two lawsuits?
CEQA issues and referral to the Delta Stewardship Council.
Okay, that okay. David Chipping?
Yeah, I noticed that everybody wants water in a drought year. And so I also looked at the supplemental water deliveries coming out of the project. And they also, guess what, go down in drought years. Are we relying only on storage in Las Banas? Or are we thinking about using storage at WRAC and Lopez and other such places so that we can purchase our surplus water for future years rather than in the year of purchase, which from what I can see appears to be the way this is being modeled?
Yes, the consultant's going to include looking at our local storage or local reservoirs and looking at options for storing water here locally.
Thank you. Eric Greening?
Thank you. Yes, relative to water transfer agreements, would the assumption be that anyone receiving water with one of those agreements would be a purveyor with a distribution system rather than a groundwater basin? And the reason I ask is if water is moved into a groundwater basin, its ownership, people who have wells in that basin may suddenly have some big legal questions about whose water they're pumping out of their own wells. So I'm just wondering, is the assumption that it would be simply agreements with purveyors and distribution systems? And then also relative to governance options, will there be an evaluation, pros and cons, advantages, disadvantages, of whether the county and or its purveyors might join on the board of the Central Coast Water Authority, and whether we would more effectively implement these programs if we had that kind of a voice? Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Okay. Yeah, for the first one, looking at the different water management strategies would it would include direct delivery or transfer to a water purveyor. It could be delivery to a groundwater storage program that exists. There are storage programs out there, and so the consultant's going to look at how those are operated and under what terms you can utilize or enter in an agreement with that storage program. So we'll get to learn more through the study about which ones exist out there and under what terms, and we can have them include, like, have they had any problems, like you're saying, with nearby landowners and other wells. So we'll get to understand how existing water banks, water storage programs operate the ones that exist and have room, you know, or looking for a new storage partner, so to speak. So we're not limiting it in terms of looking at the different options so that we can understand them all. And then once we understand them all, and you know, the subcontractors, the board start to hone in on the water management strategies that they want to move towards, at that point, I think it would be good to look at the governance options based around what that picture is. So trying to match the best governance to where we want to head with how state water is going to be managed and used going forward.
Thank you. Would the actual process of applying for membership in the CCWA be time-consuming or fairly swift if we were to decide to do it?
I think it would be time-consuming to think about, you know, all the details of how that would work. You know, I know in the past it's been, well, you'd have one vote if you joined now. But if we moved towards a more cooperative approach or a joint approach in sharing our state water allocations that are available and trying to manage it in a way that meets more than just existing subcontractors' needs in both our counties, well, I could see a different model coming forward. But I do think that would take a lot of time to work out those details.
I look forward to that, but yeah, I would think so as well. And the weighting of the vote is by acre feet in their present agreement, regardless of whether we had one person sitting there or people from different districts. Anyway, thank you so very much. Excellent, excellent work in this.
Okay. Thanks. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, Andy, this is Greg Graywell. May I speak?
Sure, Greg, go ahead.
Okay, you know, there's 6 years that are listed in this report of possible years where water was spilt at the San Luis Reservoir. But this is the beginning of the 23rd year of us receiving state water. And the other 16 and 17 years show how lacking the state was in delivering the water. That's why we didn't have water to spill, because they never delivered the percentage of water that we pay for. And so you have 23 years. This water is not reliable because you never know where you're going to get. Every November they tell you what you're beginning at. This year is 20%. That's 20% of the 25,000. So when you do get a good wet year, everybody has a wet year. When everybody has a wet year, this is the reason that they run out of storage space, of what I was speaking about before. The state has not built enough storage space for the water that they have promised and sold. The extra water that's paid for that the subcontractors don't buy is funded by the taxpayers in this county. And yet when the money or water is being traded or sold, what is the benefit to the people that don't get any benefit from the state water? This is the other reason why the stored water capture program is so important, because we're using our own diverted water here instead of buying diverted water from Northern California at, by the time it gets down here, close to $1,500 an acre foot. So, you know, $15 an acre, or 10,000 acre feet of water at $1,500 an acre foot is $15 million. Do we have a group of people that are signing up to get another 10,000 that have $15 million every year, if the water is even delivered? So I think some of this sounds really good. And just to give, and I know there's somebody in the meeting that's from the city of San Luis Obispo. And I'm going to speak just to the northern part here. In the last 3 years, on our first annual report that covered 2017, 18, and 19 in the Paso Basin, 14,000 acre feet of water from the Nacimiento project flowed to the ocean and was not put to beneficial use and wasn't used. I don't know what the percentage was for the Naci water that supposedly would go to the city of San Luis. So every year you have unused water that's actually available, that's sitting right here in our county, that's not being put to beneficial use. And that water should be used first before you would purchase water outside that can't fit in the pipe, that you can't make any bigger, that goes to South County or to Santa Barbara County. So it's really nice that they can get an extra 10,000 acre feet or 9,700 acre feet to North County, but you can't get it the rest of the way because there's no space in the pipe. And the people up here are deadly against water banking, because water banking means you're making a withdrawal. You're not recharging the basin. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Anyone else? Comment?
I'm sorry, it's not exactly part of the discussion, but we've heard it twice now from Greg, and it just needs to be refuted that water that goes down creeks and rivers is wasted. There are other uses for water than just human needs. This last rain, the creek in San Luis Obispo was scoured out. All the dirt, all of the silt was washed out. Reds are ready for fish to come back in. The water is clean. The banks are clean. Water goes out through creeks and rivers and streams and supports multiple species, many, many, many times the number of human beings who need the water. So I'm sick and tired of hearing water wasted when it goes down nature's pathways.
Thank you, Christine. And we will leave it there on that one. I think that there is certainly opportunity to find the win-win in terms of storage, agriculture, aquatic life, better hydrology. I think we have all kinds of fabulous opportunities that will turn out when we can all be able to cooperate in this kind of setting. So thank you all for your comments. If there's nothing else on general comments, Brendan, maybe if you could bring up the slide again with a recommendation, and we can see if there's a motion and a vote to go forward with this. Sorry, I'm giving you more than 8 seconds of warning.
Hey, Andy.
Yeah.
This is Charles Borbeau.
Is that Charles? Hey, Charles.
Yeah, from the city of Atascadero. I just wanted to make sure in reading through this and listening, as a community, you know, we have the water company, so we're not the actual water purveyor here like most of the cities. But let's just say the cities who are not participants and the communities who are not participants in State Water Project water in any way, shape, or form. We actually don't have a dog in this fight at all, right? And either in terms of the kind of discussion that we had, or in terms of the recommendations to the board. Would that be a safe thing to say?
Courtney, do you want to?
Sure. Yeah.
Respond to that?
So part of the water that could be, I'll just use, there's different tools provided for in this water management amendment, but one of the probably the ones of interest to, from a countywide taxpayer perspective, is the opportunity to sell the water if no one locally needs it and recover some costs. So there would be an interest, in my mind, from countywide taxpayers to be able to do that when we haven't been able to do that under the current contract, and recover costs for the State Water Contract Fund, or the, State Water Contract Fund.
In terms of countywide taxpayers' interest in this, what funds are used to pay for some of this that it would affect the let's say the average countywide taxpayer?
I think there's two things that the decision, like when part of the discussion too, and using the tools is going to be, what do we do with any revenue if one of the tools we use is the annual transfer? In the past, it's gone back into the flood control district budget, and then we've been able to use that to do more planning studies and advance other projects in the county. Another way to look at it is it coming back into the budget for covering the state water costs. And so if we get revenue back, then it kind of offsets some of the future costs of maintaining that state water contract.
All right, thank you.
Great. So we have a recommendation from the subcommittee to recommend that the board approve the water management amendment on February 9th. Since this came from the ad hoc committee, it's actually, I don't think we need a move in second. And then is the second bullet point, the second about March 2nd, is that an action item? March 2nd board update, or is that just information?
Not necessarily, unless the RAC did want to formally support or not support a pilot program for 2021. Again, the subcontractors would like to do that. And since you don't meet until the 3rd, which would be after the 2nd, that's something to consider. But March 2nd, we will be going to the board and reviewing the same material and getting their input, and then recommending, looking at, assuming that they approve the water management amendment on the 9th, looking at, okay, now do you want to look at something for 2021?
Just to keep it clean, I'm going to make a motion for the first bullet. If I'm prepared to support the first bullet and all 4 sub-bullets, but if someone wants to put a recommendation on the second, they can make that motion. But right now I'm moving the first bullet.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion from Eric Greening. Is there a second?
I'll second it. I'll second it, Andy. This is Tim.
Tim, okay. Any other discussion or questions before this vote? I'm going to try a verbal, and if we get a lot of dissent, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote, because this was a little bit open last time. So if you can, so I'm actually going to ask you to unmute, and when I ask for ayes, you say aye, and then I'm going to ask for noes, and if you say noes, and if it's not obvious, then we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. Okay. So this is on the first major bullet in terms of the recommendation to the board for the water management amendment on February 9th only. All in favor, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Right, and any opposed?
No.
And was that Dennis?
That was Dennis.
That was First district.
Thank you. Any other noes? All right, so that motion carries. Does somebody want to make a motion for the recommendation in terms of a water transfer pilot program? Or we can stay neutral on that one? All right.
I will make a motion for that. I think that's a good idea. So I'll make a motion that we recommend developing a water transfer pilot program for 2021.
Okay, is there a second? All right, I'm not seeing a second at this time.
I'll second that. This is Director Gibson.
Okay,
Thanks,
Director
Shirley.
Gibson. Who second that? Recommend developing a water transfer.
I guess my question is there a possibility that the board could act on that development of a pilot program subsequent to the actual making of the amendment? Because I would want to see a lot more details before I support or oppose.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of the same problem that I had, Andy. I think that doing this transfer pilot program, you know, in 2021, just, I don't know, it just seems like a tall order, honestly. And that
I could be
my
very
apprehension
supportive,
as
but I
well.
don't have that information now on what it would be and what its impacts would be.
I could clarify, so the recommendation on the March 2nd would be directing staff to come back with details on what a pilot program would look like. So if they don't even want us to look at what it would take to do a pilot program, then they wouldn't give us that direction. So it's sort of just, do they even want us
the
to look
board
at
would
it?
not be actually specifying a water transfer pilot program at their March 2nd meeting, but simply giving direction to come back with some options or alternatives? The way it reads now, it looks as if they're going to pick a water transfer pilot program and develop it, but
Yeah,
I'll
my recommendation
I'll
would be
reword
that
that for next time. Sorry about that.
yeah, can we revise the motion to reflect that?
Yes, I would be happy to revise my motion. So
exploring or recommending additional information on a water
yes,
potential.
That sounds good. Requesting, that I'll make a motion that we recommend developing or getting more information on a potential water transfer pilot program for 2021. Does that make sense?
yeah, it could be presenting several alternatives of what would be the first one. It would be sort of what would be involved in it, et cetera, et cetera. I'm definitely moving towards support with the new motion.
I'll second the new motion. Director Gibson.
Okay.
Does anybody want to comment on this before we vote?
Courtney, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Would you, with the process here, if the board approves developing a potential program options to come back to the board in the future, you would come back to the WRAC with those options prior to going to the board?
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So it sounds like if we, since we're supporting recommendation 1, it seems that at least understanding what our options are for the pilot program probably go together with that. Okay. Any questions before vote? We're going to do the same thing. So all in favor of the motion as modified, please unmute and say aye.
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 And then any no's? Okay, hearing none, motion carries. Thanks everyone for helping out with the how to vote by Zoom. All right, so that is the end of that item and almost done with our agenda here. Are there any public comments for items not on the agenda?
Yes. This is Greg Graywell.
All right, Greg.
Yeah, as a person that owns a 360-acre ranch and takes care of all the wildlife and habitat on that place, I don't need to listen. For 71 years, the water from this North County watershed and the Salinas River has been taken to the South County, damaging the watershed up here. I think that is an important issue that needs to be looked at a future date. Also, because in the water code, you're not supposed to damage another watershed where you're taking the water from. So there's a lot of particular things that could solve issues, and stormwater capture doesn't mean that you're damaging the wildlife, especially when we're letting so much water go out to the ocean that could be put to beneficial use that would make more habitat and more recreation areas and stuff that would help every community in this state. But all that water comes from the northern part of the 3 parts of our state, with the basins in the middle and a majority of the people living in Southern California. So I think those are important things to look back in it. And I'm sorry that people feel like because you want stormwater capture that you're willing to kill habitat or wildlife. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Anyone else for comments not on the agenda? Okay, and then future agenda items. There's good stuff lining up. Are there any suggestions, comments, things that people want to come forward? All right, seeing none. Well, thank you everyone for being here, and the meeting is adjourned until our next regular meeting, March 3rd, 2021, 1:30 via GoToMeeting. So we will see you all then.